Welcome everyone to the fourth presentation in Arbinger series, Managing Rapid Change in Crisis. It's really neat to see all of the different places you're from on the chat here. There are people from all over the world. Today, you're going to hear from Sam Whitney on Don't Hold People Accountable, Develop Accountable People. We've had an overwhelming response from around the world from many of you, and you've asked very similar questions about teams going remote overnight, about how to be nimble as leaders, how to have major flexibility, making daily adjustments, daily, sometimes hourly adjustments, and maintaining consistent communication and accountability. We're listening to those questions, so please keep sending them in as we continue to create new webinar series and different types of content. We are using those questions to inform what we do. We want to be able to give you the most relevant information when you need it. And as well as practical tools to help you work from these questions toward an answer, which I think Sam has some that he's working on today to share with you. By way of reminder, you will, anybody who's registered for this, you will receive a link to the presentation in your email later today. Additionally, if you do run into any technical problems, we ask you to move over to the YouTube channel so you don't miss anything. Our YouTube channel is currently live streaming, and you can find that on YouTube by just searching for Arbinger Institute, and you'll see us live there. Today, I'm happy for the chance to introduce Sam Whitney, Associate Director of International Development at the Arbinger Institute. Sam has been with Arbinger for more than 5 years, so many of you viewing this video know Sam already and have had a chance to work with him, and you know what a joy that is. Sam has a background in international training and has headed training initiatives in more than 30 countries. On a personal note, I know Sam and that he is one of Arbinger's most ardent supporters, and the way he lives with an outward mindset every day really is inspirational. So without further delay, please enjoy Sam's presentation. Don't hold people accountable, develop accountable people. To you, Sam.
Okay, thank you so much, Sarah. Hi, everyone. Great to be with you. Today, we're going to be talking about an important topic on a regular day, but today we're dealing with unprecedented circumstances. The reason I chose the topic of don't hold people accountable, develop accountable people, is because never before has been more important for us to have individuals in our organizations that are aware of and accountable for their work. If we don't have accountable people at the helm of our business or working in our organizations, disaster can strike, and the risk level is so much higher. I want to tell you a quick story to illustrate the risk of not having accountable people in our organizations. 2 years ago, a couple years ago, a housing community near where my family lives instituted a set of bylaws. One of those bylaws was to tow illegally parked cars in the community. Great, very straightforward. They put the bylaw in place, everyone went home. The very next week, there was a family in the community who had a grandfather pass away. So they bring grandpa in the hearse, and he's in the hearse, and family gets out, and they park the hearse in front of the house. They go inside to finalize the paperwork. And when they come out, not 10 minutes later, the car's gone. The hearse is completely gone. And all we have where the hearse was is a small flag in the ground that says your car was illegally parked. You can pick it up at such and such time for $200, yada, yada, yada. This is an example of what might happen when we don't have an individual who is accountable for their work. Now, very quickly, if we were to categorize the mindset of this tow truck driver who towed away someone's relative during a funeral, we might think of this person's mindset perhaps as self-focused, myopic, maybe even oblivious, right? And the interesting part, and I asked this question rhetorically, if we were to ask the tow truck driver to defend his actions, what might he say? You know, we could imagine him saying something like, well, hey, I was just doing my job. And you know what's funny about that is that he'd be absolutely right. He did his job, technically speaking. Yes, he did his job. But he did his job in such a way as to negatively impact the other people around him, his company, the community, everyone. So if we think about the way he categorizes his work, he's very much output oriented. Now, what we ultimately need in organizations We don't need this output-oriented, self-focused way of thinking. What we really need is self-aware, thoughtful, and helpful individuals. People who think about the impact of their work, who think about the overall impact of how their work impacts other people's ability to do their work, how their work impacts our company's reputation, it impacts our company's bottom line, how it impacts the company's mission. We can think of the self-focused, myopic, and oblivious mindset as an inward mindset. This is a place in which I see myself and I only think about my results relative to me. What we really need to get to in our organizations, if we're going to develop accountable people, is to have an outward mindset where we're focused on our results. We're focused on the impact of what we do on everyone else. You can think of an inward mindset individual as someone who needs to be held accountable, and an outward mindset individual as someone who is naturally accountable. So the thing becomes here, if we are going to create and develop accountable people, we need to define our work, or redefine rather, in our work in terms of impact. So I want to share with you a quick experience that I had with a leader who did just this. And then I want to give you 2 practical tools to start developing accountability right now. So a couple of years ago, again, 2 years ago, around the same time as the tow truck story, my boss and I were on a team together. It was only me and him. We were not doing well. We were not hitting targets. We were heading toward the end of the year and getting nervous. We were not interfacing well as a team. We were arguing internally. And one day, out of the blue, my boss called a meeting. I went into his office. He sat me down and he said, "Sam, I have not been helpful to you." And it stopped me in my tracks. He said, "I have not been helpful to you, and here are the ways I have not been helpful to you." And he listed them out. And then he went on to say and describe different things he was going to change in order to be helpful to me. And then finally, he asked me what I thought about that and how he could be more helpful to my work, given the work he was doing. Now, first of all, this was amazing. This had never happened to me before in my career. Second of all, he was absolutely right. He hit all the things on the head that I had been complaining about to my wife and my friends and anyone who would listen. And third, what was so interesting is what happened in me is that it drew up in me an incredible desire to reciprocate with my manager. Suddenly, I started talking about the ways I wasn't being helpful, and I was promising to do things better, and we were both reconciling our relationship and having a radically different kind of discussion around the way we could be more effective. Suddenly, the accountability my boss and my manager had taken inspired accountability in me, and it radically transformed the way we interfaced as a team. Not only did it radically transform how we interface as a team, it also radically transformed our results for that year. It was amazing. And we instituted a regularity of that meeting, so we would check in with each other every so often to make sure that we were having a positive impact on one another. Now, this story leads into a key point, which is when we want to develop accountable people, we cannot reach into someone else's brain and flip a switch and make them accountable. It's not possible. If we're going to develop accountable people, we have to become accountable people ourselves. That is the only way, at least that I found, that can develop accountable people, because it creates an opportunity for a truly accountable conversation and really a different way of going about things. So I want to give you a tool right now to help unlock this accountability, how you can run your very own impact check-in right now. Now, if we were to categorize the mindset of my boss or my manager at that time, I would say that he was definitively outward toward me. That's because he saw me as a person. He thought about my needs, objectives, and challenges, and he oriented the things he was doing to be helpful to me. And then I reciprocated. So here's how we run an impact check-in. First and foremost, we start with a bit of preparation. So all we're doing is we're identifying a single person who's affected by what we do. This could be someone at work. It could be a supervisor, a customer, a vendor, anyone that we interface with at work. You can even think about this at home. Maybe it's your spouse or children or a relative of some kind or a community member. Number 2, decide a time when you will go meet with this person. You got to commit to meeting with them. So put a date on the calendar, put a time. Maybe it's tomorrow at 4:00. I don't know. But put a time down when you're going to meet with this person. Given the distance that we have to take now and the measures we're taking, I'd recommend doing this over Zoom or over the phone. Lastly, list some adjustments you could make. Take out a pen and paper and list adjustments you could make to be more helpful to this person. Maybe you're writing down things you've done that haven't been helpful. Maybe it's writing down things you could have done better and haven't done yet. But whatever it is, let your mind run a little bit wild here and just write down the adjustments that you're going to make to be more helpful. Now, as we go to execute this tool, that's the preparation. As we go to execute, meet with this person now and share the things you wrote down. Simply share them. Be open and honest with this person, just like my boss was with me. Here are the ways I haven't been helpful to you. Here are the ways I hope to be more helpful to you. And then get their feedback. With that person's feedback, you can now readjust your efforts to be more helpful. Now, it's not a requirement that they now reciprocate. If the person just sits there quietly and accepts your accountability, great. At least you've been accountable for your work and you've created a beneficial space where something can happen. But in my experience, 100% of the time, I've experienced reciprocation from doing this, both with my own direct reports and when people have approached and done this with me. Now, this tool is excellent, and I invite you to put it into practice right now. Don't delay. But here's the thing about accountability. Given the situation we're in now, we don't have the time sometimes to put a meeting on the calendar and sit down for 30 minutes and talk. Sometimes we need to triage something quickly. And in this current environment, we're heading into new and different situations that we've never faced before. So I want to give you a tool to hopefully triage some of these more difficult scenarios that are coming up. Many of us are working remotely, and many of us need to have meetings in a different way now. So I want to give you a tool I call creating accountable meetings. This tool can be done in preparation and also during a meeting. So we'll go through it in both ways. But very quickly, what I want you to do is take out a piece of paper and write down an objective or an initiative at the top of that paper. This can be, we're going to use, for the sake of our discussion now, we're going to use the idea of a meeting. We're going to be holding a meeting here in the next week. So I'm going to put down at the top of the page there, meeting. Now I'm going to use my flip chart here, and we're going to interact with the chat a little bit, but I'm going to put it up here at the top of my page right here. So I'm going to put hold meeting. Very simple. Now what we're going to do is we're going to think about who's going to be affected by this meeting, right? Who are the people that are going to be involved in this meeting? So maybe it's, my colleague Sarah, maybe Rachel, maybe Cameron, maybe Mitch. But however many there are, I'll write them down. If it's a whole group of people, let's say I'm at the head of a company and it's my entire organization, well, I'll just put down team names maybe just for speed. But I'm going to put down and think about who is going to be affected by this meeting. Now, here's the important part, and where I need your help as our audience to actually chat in some ideas here. So I'm going to prompt you 1 second. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to draw a T-chart on this page. Very simple T-chart. And on the left, I'm going to write inward mindset. I'm going to write an IM for an abbreviation, inward mindset. Now, what I want you to do in the chat window really quickly for me is chat in. If you were to go into this meeting with these people with an inward mindset, basically focused on your own objectives and challenges, not thinking about the overall impact, being self-focused, what kind of things might you do, think, say, or maybe even feel as you go into that meeting? Go ahead and type those answers into the chat now, and we're going to start putting those up here on the board. Can we get the chat up here really quickly? Thanks. Okay. Start there. Okay, thank you. This is not good enough. I may blame people. Okay. Blame. No curiosity. That's exactly right. This is stupid. I don't need to be here. Okay, take a couple more. You guys are awesome. There's just so many of them. So waste of time. Yep. Okay, we'll stop there. Go ahead. You can keep chatting them in if you like. If you got more ideas, I'll put my flip chart back up. Now, the next part of this tool, let's think about this. If we were to go about this meeting now, let's switch gears. I still need your help in the chat. If we were to switch gears and now go about this from an outward mindset, then same meeting, totally different mindset. We're now thinking about the whole. We're now thinking about our impact on others. We're now alive to other people. How might we go about this meeting now? Go ahead and chat those in. I'm seeing open-minded. Yeah. Outward mindset. Open-minded. Listening. Great. Active listening. Great. What do they need? Big picture. That's exactly right. Big picture, man. You guys are so great. Curiosity, yep. Okay, we'll take one more. Yeah, how do I benefit the company? Benefit others. Great, okay, now we're gonna do two more of these, so hang on. Now, let's think about this. We have an inward way of going about this meeting, we have an outward way of going about this meeting. Let's think about the impact of both of these ways of going about it. If we were to go into this meeting with an inward mindset, what would the impact be on the effectiveness of the meeting? What would the impact be on the other people? What would the impact be overall of going about the meeting from an inward mindset? Go ahead and chat in what you guys think. Yeah, people would be defensive. The meeting would be a waste of time. Drama triangle, I like that one. That's great. Drama triangle, great. Energy drain, love that. Okay, we'll stop there. Now, if we were to do the same thing, let's go to the outward side now, real quick. What would the impact be of coming to the meeting with an outward mindset? Let's go ahead and hit that goals accomplished, collaboration. I love that. Collaboration, genuine feedback, innovation. I love that. Okay. Okay, we'll stop there. Now, quickly chat in really quickly. Would you rather have an inward meeting or an outward meeting? Outward? Oh, wow. Across the board. Wonderful. Here's such an interesting point that I like to make here. As we look at these two ways of going about a meeting, just a meeting, think about our whole company, not to mention, if we have just the meeting, we ultimately want the results that are available to us from an outward mindset. But too often we go about approaching those results with inward methods. We cannot achieve outward mindset impact and outcomes with an inward mindset. So what's required of us as individuals is to be that change that we want to see in our organizations, to embody the outward mindset by taking accountability for our impact, becoming accountable people so that other people can have that space and we can start to generate this opportunity. Now, you may be in a situation where you're not in a leadership role and you're thinking, well, wait a second, my whole organization's inward. How am I supposed to do this? Don't try to think about it too much in terms of the big picture. Think about it just in the smallest way you can. What's the next thing I'm going to do today? Am I going to send an email? Am I going to have a phone call? Quickly draw up an inward-outward mindset diagram like this. Draw the impact, commit to that outward impact, and try your best to take responsibility and accountability for your impact in that call, that meeting, that email, whatever it is. Start small, and you'll just watch how it just spreads. It spreads so fast. So many people around you are starving for outward interactions, particularly right now. So go ahead and I challenge you to do that. All right, the last part of this tool, very quickly, as you do this, go ahead and write on the side of your tool, what are the things you're going to be doing differently in order to now maximize the impact and have an outward mindset. We're just going to write in. You don't have to chat those things in. You can if you want to, don't worry. But this is the last part of the tool. We're just going to now commit to doing things differently because this tool ultimately reveals to us a different way of going about things, right? All right, everybody. Thank you so much for being with us. Before we go, I'm going to answer a few questions that have come into the chat over our time together. I'm going to answer a few questions and then we'll be wrapping up. Let me just jump right in here then. The first question what we have here on our tablet is, as we go more and more virtual, how do we continue to develop accountable employees while we have less direct interaction? This is a wonderful question. Here's the thing. What's going to be required of us as leaders is to insert ourselves more into the day-to-day of the people we work with, because we don't have the luxury of having them down the hall anymore, okay? We need to set up regular meetings. I would recommend having an impact check-in every week, if you can, to continually refresh that impact, right? And continually refresh and stay alive to the way that I'm impacting other people and give people the chance to bring that forward as well. You can do an impact check-in with one individual. You can do it with your entire team. But I think in answer to this question, my answer would be twofold. Just try to insert yourself more regularly into the communication with your employees. And number two, do what you can to regularly check in around impact. Question 2, how do you hold people, how do we develop / motivate accountable people without incentives that motivate and hold them accountable? Here's the thing, material incentives are almost non-existent in a climate like this. We may have had to shift things financially dramatically. And so perhaps we've lost track of or we don't have access to material incentives. That's perfectly okay. There have been many studies that have been done that show that individuals are motivated primarily by their sense of mission and commitment to an organization, perhaps even more than their material incentives. This may not be true of everyone, but these studies do bear out that a majority of people want to be committed to the mission and objectives of their organization and be personally invested. So that's exactly what you need to do. We can't access material incentives, so we now need to bring people into the inner circle of our organization and help them get buy-in into the mission and objectives that we have. Be honest and open with people. Try the impact check-in tool and open up with individuals about how they can be helpful, how they can be involved, how you haven't been helpful. And we're all fumbling through this situation. We're all trying our best here, and we're making mistakes and we're making triumphs. It's okay to own that stuff. But bring people into the inner mission of the organization, and you'll watch as people jump on board and become committed, which will be far more motivating than any material incentive you can provide. Finally, our last question, how do you hold a person accountable when they don't take responsibility for their actions, but rather blame others? I'm going to answer this question with an experience that I had and kind of the implementation of an idea. I manage teams here internationally, and I had a team that was not hitting their goals. And they were blaming the lack of success on market conditions, on external values, external things. In our conversation, what I realized as I reflected on what they were saying, I realized that as a leader, I had not taken the time to explain to them adequately my expectations as a leader. So I apologized for that. I took ownership of that. I said, look, I have not been helping you to understand what accountability means inside the framework of our team. So I did that. I explained that to them. After doing that, I then said, let's set up together a plan to set measures in place that we will use as a measure of success for things moving forward. If you're able to hit these targets and these ideas here moving forward, then great. We'll continue on the team. Things will be great, and we'll grow and we'll support each other. If we're not able to get there together, then we'll have another kind of conversation. What was excellent about this is what the team that we talked to put in place were actually quite high measures. I was very surprised by how willing they were to jump in and how motivated they were to hold themselves accountable. They were excited by the chance to set their own measures, and I gave them feedback. But that conversation ended up helping them to be held accountable, but also put me in a position of holding myself accountable for my role as their leader. So I think that's really how I go about that. Step 1, get really honest about whether or not you've been helpful as a leader. And number 2, be very straightforward with them and work together to develop measures of accountability and success. All right, everyone, that concludes our time together. Thank you so much for being with us. I really hope this was helpful to you. Please implement the tools, and please tune in for our next webinar coming up. We are grateful that you came, and we hope that we can continue to provide help to you as we navigate these difficult situations. Anyway, have a great rest of your day or your evening, wherever you are, and we'll see you later.
Sam, Whitney, thank you so much for your thoughts today on developing accountable people and on being accountable ourselves. So much useful information and a really engaging presentation. Thank you so much. We cannot, unfortunately, take up the whole rest of your day answering the thousands of questions, both here in the chat and submitted when you registered. So I encourage you to email those pressing questions to us, info@arbinger.com. That's info@arbinger.com, and connecting with us there. Also, if you haven't yet, please, I encourage you to find Arbinger on LinkedIn. Go search for the Arbinger Institute on LinkedIn and follow our page. As I mentioned earlier, we're responding a lot to your questions by creating content and hosting webinars that we think are the most pressing answers that you are needing right now, along with really practical tools that you can implement. And to keep in touch with us and find out exactly what we're creating, that's the best way to do it very easily and quickly. A lot of you are on LinkedIn pretty regularly. So follow us and find out first what content we're working on and creating for you right now. For those of you who may have missed last week's presentation on strategic flexibility, you might also have missed our announcement, which is that as an organization, Arbinger has been really working the SAM tool. We're in constant touch with a lot of you. We've been in constant contact, learning about what your needs are as organizations, knowing that those shifted and changed overnight. And in response to a lot of requests, Arbinger is pleased to announce that we have chosen to expand access to our virtual workshops, including developing and implementing an outward mindset. Previously, these virtual versions of the workshop were available by request only, and we're really happy to be able to offer that virtual access now that our teams and your teams are distributed all over the world, sitting at all types of desks in all sorts of offices. To learn more about that offering, you can visit our website, or again, email us at info@arbinger.com for more information on how to register for one of our virtual workshops. Tomorrow, please join us for our 5th and final installment in this webinar series, where you'll hear from Cameron Cousins and his presentation, Doing More with Less, Balancing an Increased Workload. This topic has been highly requested. If you know of anyone, and I would be surprised if you didn't, who might find value in the presentation because they're dealing with their own increased workload, please direct them to arbinger.com/webinars, where they can register and learn more details. Cameron, who's going to be presenting tomorrow, is the director of the government practice here at Arbinger Institute and a former U.S. Army colonel. I'm sorry, I almost said Navy, Cameron. U.S. Army colonel with more than 2 decades of distinguished leadership and operational experience in the intelligence and special ops communities. Thank you again for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow.